Miami doesn't really have an inventory problem. It has a seller strike. If you're trying to buy a home right now, it can feel almost impossible because this isn't really about low supply. What this is really about is a massive shift in the Miami market. Ever since COVID, we saw a whole new set of buyers coming here, and they were coming in droves, buying anything they get their hands on, and they're not leaving. So here's where it gets interesting. While everybody thinks Miami is still booming the way it was, the numbers are starting to tell a different story. So in this video, I'm going to break down why we're here and how we actually got here, and how the 7 Ds are really going to impact the real estate market. Hi guys, I'm Riley Smith, and I run a large real estate team here in Miami, and we specialize in residential real estate all over South Florida. And I've been doing this for over 20 years and seen several market cycles. And I can tell you the last couple of years have been some of the hardest that I've ever seen and the most challenging for buyers and sellers to navigate. So we're going to break all that down in this video coming right up. The great Miami land grab and what actually happened during COVID. Really, everyone just rushed to Miami. Let's rewind for a second. So to understand why we have such low inventory in so many parts of Miami, we really have to understand what happened during COVID. If we can all go back to March 2020 for a minute and remember what those first few days, weeks, and months were like. Everything was shut down. The world was shut down. We all thought maybe we're never going to sell another house. We didn't know what was going to happen in the real estate space. And then all of a sudden, of course, because we're in Florida, things got a little better here for us, perhaps in some other parts of the country. And I think things got a little worse in some of the major cities, New York, Chicago, LA, and places like that. And all of a sudden, we started to see all these new New York, Chicago, and probably up and down the East Coast people starting to come have interest in South Florida particularly, and really especially right here in Miami. If we fast forward about 6 months into the COVID era, and all of a sudden we were open for business, deemed essential, and there we were standing out in front of our house with our booties on, our hand gloves on, our masks on, and lines of people at open houses. I can't even tell you what it was like. I had been doing real estate for over 20 years when COVID hit, and by the time we got to summer of 2020, what we were watching and experiencing was something out of this world. There were so many more buyers than there were homes for sale, and in a matter of days it seemed like the inventory flipped right upside down, and buyers were going crazy just to get their hands on any piece of property here in South Florida. So I think by the end of 2020, we all realized that there was something really, really special about what was happening here and this new migration to South Florida. And it wasn't just going to be this emergency rush out of New York City and places like that, but it was going to be perhaps a change of our South Florida landscape as more and more people were coming. And when they were getting here, they were like, I can't believe I've been living up north in the cold. I can't believe I've been living with these politics. I can't believe I've been living with these taxes. And as these words started bouncing around South Florida and resonated with all of the new buyers coming and potential new people, it was obvious to all of us that this was going to be something that was going to change our landscape forever. Why no one is selling? And probably won't. It seems to me right now that no one really wants to ever leave. So that explains why we got here, but it doesn't really explain why we're still tight today. I think this is the part that most people miss. It's not that sellers can't sell, it's that they don't want to sell, and that's a problem. The question we get asked all the time is, why is there so little inventory, and why aren't homeowners putting their homes on the market at a normal rate that we have seen throughout Miami in the history that we've been doing it? And I think it's a culmination of a lot of things. We have a lot of new people that came to Miami, so they're recent residents, they're settled in, they're getting comfortable, and they seem like they really enjoy living here. So we don't see those people leaving. Because we had so many new buyers come in such a short period of time, the entire market got turned upside down. That's just one reason. I think the other reason we also have is because of the pandemic and then the government's response to the pandemic, we got much lower interest rates. People not only are new down to South Florida, but then the people who were living here decided they were going to go ahead and take advantage of these rates and refinance their homes at epic low interest rates. Now we fast forward a couple of years later, and we have people that are new to Miami that are loving and living here, can't imagine going back. We have people that have been in Miami forever and perhaps we want to leave, but their interest rates are so good. And then we also have issues of things like taxes and insurance that are making it very hard for everybody to make a decision to leave Miami or to just move out of their current home to look for a new property. I think we can't really overstate how those ultra low interest rates really impacted the market that we work in, Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, Pinecrest area. Not only did everybody come here, there were a lot of people paying cash, but anybody and everybody who could afford to get a mortgage were jumping in and buying at an historic low rate. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, everybody else followed suit and signed up for new home equity loans or refied their houses at unbelievable rates. And now, as we fast forward today where we sit right now, right, because of the war and other things happening, we're looking at a 6.5% rate, give or take right now. And there's still people out there that have a 3 or sub 3 rate that have locked in for over 30 years. So it's still going to be a challenge to unlock some of these sellers that we desperately need in this market. We need a lot more sellers to get back to a healthy market and a healthy healthy inventory. Right now, I would say probably, if I had to guess, we need 4 times the amount of homes, especially single family homes. Condo market has shifted a little bit and there is a little bit more going on there, but we're talking today mostly single family homes. I can guarantee you, if we had 4 times the amount of inventory we do right now, we would still have buyers for all of it. We have a lot of homes hitting the market that are in one particular category, and that is the new construction category. Here we are 4 or 5 years later from the whole COVID disaster and all of what happened after that. And during that time, a new theme developed. These buyers that were coming from all parts of the United States, especially big cities, they were looking for brand new or newly renovated properties. And what this did was this spurred the developers and gave them the confidence to start buying land, going through the process, working with the city of Miami, which if you haven't built before, you should know could take several years between the time you buy a property and deliver a property. And so what we're seeing right now is exactly what happened because of COVID. Developers jumped right in, they bought everything they could, wherever they could, built these new beautiful homes, and they're all trying to rush to market to deliver the product that these buyers have been looking for. I think in the areas that we work in South Florida, it has really become incredibly difficult for first-time home buyers to get in here. You just have to look around at our pricing, right? Since COVID, our prices have probably gone up 100, 120%. That means everything changes for first-time home buyers. It's a lot harder to win a house if you're bidding against other people. Most of them are not paying cash. The out-of-towners are paying cash, so these first-time home buyers are a lot of times at a disadvantage. They've also got to be able to save up now an extra amount of money to pay for their down payment. Most of them want to do an 80% loan, 20% down, and in our market, that could take a long time. And then now we also have exorbitant closing costs. As prices have gone up, closing costs go up as well. So does cost for insurance, right? Obviously, you have your mortgage rate. And then, we also have certain HOAs and condo associations in some other buildings. The only homes hitting the market are mostly coming from the famous 7Ds. This brings us to something we talk a lot about in real estate. There are always sellers that want to sell, but what we're talking about right now tend to be the people who have to sell for a lot of different reasons. The 7Ds in real estate depend on where you are and where you're located, but the major ones go like this. We have death, we have divorce, we have debt, we have diapers, we have diploma. I like to believe in development, and then there is in certain parts of the country what we would call deployment, which means people are moving around for the military. So those are basically the 7Ds that we see down here, and those right now are the main factors we're seeing people leave. The other one could be downsizing depending on your market. Right now we're not seeing a lot of downsizing in Miami as it's very expensive to take your taxes from one property to another. So I think we'll focus on the other 7 for now and see how they impact our market. Regardless of market conditions, if you or your family is impacted by one of these Ds, you probably have to sell whether you want to or you don't want to. And I think that's where we are getting a little bit of inventory right now. Again, we talked already about the development as one of the Ds, I think, and that is having a huge impact on who our sellers are, making up a massive percentage of sellers right now. The rest of the sellers are all having different life-changing experiences, good or bad, up or down, in the regular course of life, and those things always happen, and they don't allow you to time the market. Most often you have to react to one of them, and that's what is helping us have a little bit more inventory and helping us unlock some of those sellers. Most of the listings we see on the market right now are probably tied to these kind of events, especially the ones that are priced right. We still have some sellers that are putting homes on the market and hoping someone will just pay them any price whatsoever, even if it doesn't make any sense. So I'm not really talking about that segment of the seller pool. I'm talking about the ones that actually really want to move. I think right now, more than ever, these are the people that have their homes on the market, because otherwise I think people are so happy here in Miami and they have such good interest rates and they also don't know where they would be able to go that they're content to stay in their homes. I think what makes it so challenging, what makes this so different than a normal market, is we just don't have the ebb and flow of new properties coming on and old properties going off and giving those buyers any real sense of options. Right now, it is tough to be a buyer in these markets. You just have slim pickings and it's not giving you the confidence to go out there. And so we're seeing a little bit of a hesitation on the buyer side at the moment as they're still trying to navigate looking at the options they have and not really loving any of them. After a couple years of this, I would have thought we would have slowly been getting out of the cycle and maybe we would be heading in a different direction. And I think before the war in Iran started, we were probably just about there. If you remember, there was like one day interest rates ticked under 6% and every realtor in Miami was ready to have a party. But that party was over pretty quickly as political events and world events changed things. Of course, the price of living and oil and all of that going up and the uncertainty that we have, that kind of dampened all that. But I think we were about to unlock and break through. And I think as soon as we see interest rates come back down again, get below 6%, that's what most economists and most heads of real estate companies believe, that will spur more buyers to come to the table. But what it will really do was give sellers now an opportunity to say, you know what, I do have a 3 or 4 or 5% loan, but now it's down to 6 or under 6. The gap will not be so big and they'll feel a little more confident going out and buying a new property, and they will stop looking at their mortgage rate as an asset, as that asset slowly starts to come together. Now here's where things start to shift, because the narrative has always been everyone is still moving to Miami. That was true for several years, but I don't don't think it's still true today. I think we have a slightly different narrative to tell. We're definitely not seeing the same level of inbound migration as we did during COVID, nor do I ever think that will probably ever happen again. But we do have a healthy, steady amount of people coming to Miami. They're just not coming in droves. They're not running here as fast as they can. And they're certainly not making decisions to purchase properties just like that on a whim, almost having an arms race of real estate. They're taking their time. They're a little more methodical, trying to understand neighborhoods and lifestyles. And I think this is probably actually a little healthier for all of us. Most people that we worked with during COVID, and that was a lot of buyers we helped get into some great homes and some great communities, have really found Miami to be a lot different than they thought they were going to be. I think they were running away from a lot of things, but now they're realizing they were actually running towards a lifestyle, right? We have an amazing lifestyle down here in South Florida. We have sunshine all the time. The weather is great 90% of the year. And also, of course, we have very, very favorable taxes. And I think taxes are also going to be a huge driver going forward. But I just mostly talk to people and I get a feel that they're actually enjoying this lifestyle. They're getting out of the big city, living in very tight quarters. Some of them went from apartments to houses. They're enjoying having a backyard and just having a little bit more of a suburban life. Most people that have come down here from other parts of the country have really decided they like it here and they're probably not going anywhere. Now, over the last year or so, we have seen a small trend of people moving back to wherever they came from. I would say, me personally, in the area that we work the most, we have seen people being called back to their office and back to New York. New York being the main pipeline for us down here for a while. But I'm seeing that more and more corporations are less likely and less excited about having people work remotely and more wanting to get everybody finally back into the office. So we have had some people that had to move because of that. Other than that, I don't see a lot of people moving away. The school data, that changes everything. One of the clear signals that's happening right now, and something that most people don't really think a lot about, is schools. After the pandemic, one of the things we realized here in South Florida, especially in Miami and the markets we work in, is that we don't have enough quality schools. But we can look at a couple different metrics. If you look at the Miami-Dade public school system, you can see that their new enrollment started to drop. And on the other side, if you talk to the private school community, they have been at capacity for a very, very long time. And I think there's a lot of people that may have moved down here to South Florida if they could have found a good school option. But more and more, I find that they're frustrated and having not enough opportunities for either private schools or very good public schools in the neighborhoods they're looking for. Schools across the country, and here in Miami is no different, have always been a huge factor for our market in real estate. People move when they're thinking about what public school they have to be in because, of course, just like the rest of the country here in Miami, if you're in a public school, you have to live within a certain area. Or people come down and they go to private schools. One of the reasons they come to Coconut Grove, Coral Gables area, of course, is we have some of the best private schools in the country. But I think the schools have a much bigger impact on our movement than people realize. If we look at the lower enrollment, especially at the public school system, it does tell us that migration trends have slowed, but I think there's also 2 or 3 different types of migration and different income levels are coming to Miami. Right now, if you talk to most realtors, we would tell you that the high-end market is on fire. That market is not dependent on or worried about going to the public schools. They're probably mostly going to be going to private schools if they have children. If we talk private schools, there are so many horror stories I can tell you of people who moved from New York, Chicago, and other big cities around the country and thought they would just be able to waltz right into any private school here and quickly realized that was not the case. We are at capacity, even over capacity. Almost all these schools have way more applicants than they could ever take, and they do not have the real estate to open up new spaces. So a lot of people were surprised. They came down here, they didn't get into the schools they want, and some of those were the people that migrated back where they came from once COVID was over. But now I think people have gotten wise, and people have decided, let's make schools a priority before we even make our move. So let's know, are we going to be down in the south? Are we going to be in the north? What public school districts are the ones that we want to be in? And let's do our homework on those. And if you're applying to private school, let's make sure we get admitted before we make a decision. And I think that's why this particular March, we really saw a boom in the market, because that was a time when private schools came out, usually at the end of February, the first week of March, as to who was going to be accepted. And I think we saw a big spike in that moment as buyers were on the fence until they understood what was really going to happen with the schooling situation. I don't think any of this really means that demand is slowing. I think it's probably just shifting. And I mentioned Miami has gotten more expensive and has attracted more higher level income people. And I think those people are starting to learn how to navigate differently. I don't know that the public school numbers are a real indicator of a trend one way or another, but I do feel like Miami is still on fire. As I'm recording this right now, it's spring break. Everywhere I go, there are people running all over the place. It feels like Miami has a new energy, and that energy does not seem to be dying off. For buyers and sellers, how do we interpret this all going forward? For buyers, I just caution you to be patient. I always tell everybody, we don't have any homeless clients. We will find you the perfect home. It's just going to take some time. For sellers, I think now you might be wanting to look at an opportunity, as there are so many buyers on the sideline. If you have the means or the will, or you just have some life-changing event as a seller, this might be a time for you to come to market when the inventory is still low and your home could still stand out. And I think there are a lot of buyers that are ready, willing, and able to jump on a perfectly priced, really good home that's positioned just right in the market. So when you zoom out, Miami doesn't have an inventory problem by accident. This is what happens when you have this massive surge into a new market or a new emerging area, and then all of a sudden you realize no one wants to leave. I think at the same time, we are starting to see some subtle signals of some changes. And I do think this market slowly but surely will start to get back to normal. Again, especially after the war is over, hopefully soon, and interest rates perhaps start to tick back down again. I do think there is hope for us to have a normal balanced market, which actually benefits both buyers and sellers in the long run. If you're thinking about buying or selling this market, I think it's more important than ever that you have the right professional help to help you make these decisions. And of course, here at RSG, we'd love to be that person. If you got any value from this, like the video, drop me a comment, and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you on the next one.